when I was preparing to go live to talk about what's happening in Palestine right now, I'm not kidding. I was overwhelmed because I couldn't keep up. You know, there's so many people, so many Palestinians that have been killed, beaten, injured, so many raids by the Israelis. I'm not kidding. I was overwhelmed. I could not keep up. And again, there are several things that have happened. If you look at the map, these events have taken primarily in, of course, Jerusalem, in Jenin and Nablus. Okay, so these are in the West Bank. And I'm going to start off with what happened this morning in Al-Aqsa Mosque. So that's known in English as, you know, Dome of the Rock, and it's the third holiest site in Islam. And as you guys know, we're Muslims are now celebrating the holy month of Ramadan, right? So Friday prayers are the most important in general, but especially during Ramadan. And when they, I mean, just to give you an idea how many people turned up, look at this. 60,000 worshippers attend Friday prayers at Al-Aqsa Mosque. Okay, and what's special about this is that, you know, actually Ramadan this year coincides with Passover and with Easter, like right now. And of course, if you read the mainstream media, they'll say, oh, look, these religions are clashing, like, you know, as if Islam came from, you know, China and Judaism came from from Mars and Christianity came from Saturn, and they just happened to meet in this area. These religions come from this area. There is no problem between them. That's just rubbish to try and cover up the Israeli crimes. And I'll get to that in a second, but I just want to show you the outrageous attacks that happened today. So, you know, again, Muslims are praying in the third holiest site in Islam, and during Ramadan, and this is what the Israelis do. They literally storm the mosque and start arresting people and throwing them on the floor. Like, I mean, what kind of behavior is this, honestly? What kind of behavior is that? There are videos of this, right? So look what they're basically throwing stun grenades and even using live ammunition, which I'll show you in a second. Look at this behavior. They've turned it into a battlefield. Look at the damage they've done. Gas bombs, live bullets that people picked up afterwards. Look what they did. Also, they broke the windows of the mosque. You can see up here in the corner. So, you know, that's the Israelis breaking, you know, the stained glass in not just, you know, a building that's 1,000 years old, but one of the most holy sites. Like it's nothing, you know, just desecrating it. And then they were beating people outside. They were beating people outside. I wanted to show you. Look how this guy just beats this woman for no reason. And then they tell you these are clashes, right? Oh, they say Israelis and Palestinians are clashing. Clashes? What do you mean? What clash is that? This guy just walks up and I don't know what he did to her hand, if he broke it or not. He just whacks her for no reason. That's a clash to you. Again, I'm going to play this for you again. You call this a clash. You call attacking people while they're praying a clash? Man, this it's really heart-wrenching seeing these videos. It's so disgusting. Here the Israelis attacking another woman. Look at that. Do you see how he's punching her? I really want to know, where are all the defenders of women's rights in the West? Right? Oh, we have a female vice president. Do you care about this female? Or you don't care because she's Palestinian? Where are all the defenders of women's rights when women in Palestine are being beaten like that in the street? And this is the second video I showed you. I'm showing you these because they're clear as day. And there are other cases that haven't been filmed or you can't see them properly. I just showed you 2 cases in the same day. Where are the defenders of women's rights? Huh? The neoliberals, they only care about, minorities and women's rights when it suits their agenda. They don't actually care, right? They use minorities as tokens. They always have this urge in the mainstream media to make it look like, well, we condemn violence on both sides, and the State Department says both sides need to exercise restraint, as if it's some level playing field. Yeah, totally totally fair, right? People praying and then people showing up with stun grenades in riot gear. Yeah, that really sounds like a clash, right? Wow. Way to whitewash the colonial crimes. And then look here, they're just shoving old people outside as well in the compound next to you can see the mosque in the background. Yeah, that really looks like a clash. Again, they know that tons of people are going to show up to pray. I told you 60,000 Muslims showed up to pray today on Friday, second week of Ramadan. And they just send the riot police, not just outside in the compound, which is bad enough, but inside the mosque. And they damage the mosque. This is a war crime. This is literally a war crime, damaging not just public infrastructure, but religious sites, right? And again, keep in mind, the Israelis are illegally occupying Jerusalem. They have no right to be there whatsoever. And so they're just committing war crimes in broad daylight, brutalizing people for literally no reason, just because they're Palestinian. And then the media, they write these kinds of things, right? These are the headlines that you see. Palestinians clash with Israeli police at Jerusalem holy site. Clash. Really. And this is, again, one headline. If you go look at the... if you look at the Washington Post, they say police and protesters clash Friday at Al-Aqsa Mosque. This is straight up oppression and violence. And they were even beating journalists. There's also videos of them whacking a journalist for no reason whatsoever. You can clearly see the guy's holding a camera. It's his job. They just whack him for no reason. He's on the ground. They keep whacking him. I mean, this is vile behavior. This is truly vile. And then the media want to act like it's both sides, right? Yeah, totally. She was injured today. Nasreen Salem, a reporter with Al-Qastan News, was covering Israel's attack on Al-Aqsa Mosque, the third holiest site in Islam, when Israeli soldiers began attacking journalists, shooting her in the head with a rubber-coated steel bullet. And again, those can be lethal. So just because they call them rubber bullets, it doesn't make them any safer. People have died from that. Even Christians, right? Look what they did to the Christians. So the Greek Orthodox Patriarchate rejects Jerusalem police's Easter restrictions. So they're not only placing restrictions on Muslims, but also on Christians, right? So the Jerusalem police, they wanted to put restrictions on the numbers of Palestinian Christians that can enter the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. And these scenes that you're seeing are a repetition of last year. And I need to remind you what happened last year as well, also during Ramadan, but it was in May, not April. You had the exact same thing. The Israelis coming in Al-Aqsa Mosque and using stun grenades. Honestly, at first I was confused. I thought, is somebody posting footage from last year? No, it's this morning. It's this morning. And they knew this was going to happen. You had even Hamas and Fatah, all the Palestinian political groups and organizations telling people the day before the prayers on Friday, get ready. They were calling for a general mobilization. Right? Because they knew this was going to happen. And you had, some, Zionist extremists saying that they're going to come to Al-Aqsa Mosque. I don't recall if it was in the compound or in the mosque itself, but that they were going to come there and sacrifice a goat, and And this, of course, is not allowed because, the status quo is that this is a holy site only for Muslims to pray in. The Jews are not allowed to pray in there. And this is even something the Israeli authorities usually, enforce. But you always see people like lawmakers coming to the mosque, and this is provocative. Why? Because they're accompanied by either police or military. Honestly, in Arabic, we don't say Israeli police or Israeli military. We say Quwat al-Ihtilal. It means the occupation forces, because that's what they are. They can call themselves whatever they like, security forces, police. I don't care. At the end of the day, for a Palestinian, for an Arab, it's the occupation. They are occupiers. They're foreign occupiers that are oppressing Palestinians, even on the most in the holiest of sites, in the holiest of times. And it's not just even Muslims; it's also Christians, as I showed you. And they had the same restrictions last year as well on the Christians. And then they tell you Israel is a democracy. Very democratic, yeah? Let's go back to the map that I was showing you earlier with the West Bank. And I was telling you about Jenin and Nablus. So basically what the Israelis have been doing the last couple of days, they've been conducting raids on both of these towns because of those shootings that happened, right? So they're saying that because, what was his name? Rad Hazim, I think. He shot 3 people in Tel Aviv. That because of that, they were going to conduct counter-terrorist operations. And Naftali Bennett, the Israeli prime minister, look at the quote. He said that he's giving all security forces full freedom to go on the offensive. So basically, he's writing them a blank check, right? In carte blanche, he's saying whatever it takes, whatever violence, it doesn't matter because we want to crack down on terrorism. And who do you think they end up killing? Over a dozen Palestinians, and the majority of them are civilians, right? Yeah. Just yesterday, they killed a lawyer, a Palestinian lawyer, right? His name is Muhammad Asaf. And then they killed a 20-year-old, Omar Silwad, and a 16-year-old, Qsay Hamamra. Nothing, just civilians, right? Murdering them. And then if you go look at the headline from the Washington Post from 14th of April, they say, 6 Palestinians were killed in West Bank raids. And honestly, I lost track. I truly lost track preparing this for you guys. There's so much happening in such a condensed period. It's mind-boggling. And, if the media dedicated like half of the time that they give to what's happening in Ukraine, the news cycle would just be saturated with beatings and killings of Palestinians, because that's literally all that's happening. Take a look at this. So Israel said it would bar Palestinians from entering from the West Bank from Friday afternoon through Saturday. So again, during Ramadan, placing more restrictions. The Palestinians killed in Thursday raids included 2 young men from the Jenin area. So again, this is over here where I was talking about. They say the area has been the target of intensified Israeli arrest raids and economic restrictions since April 7th. There we go. Ra'ad Hazem, who I was telling you about, when they came in to get him because he shot 3 people in a bar in Tel Aviv. On Friday, a 15-year-old Israeli-Palestinian girl, she stabbed a 47-year-old man in the leg. And days earlier, they took a Palestinian citizen of Israel who had been detained in Turkey for trying to cross the Syrian border, stabbed 3 people. So they're basically justifying killing Palestinian civilians because of these 4 or 5 attacks that happened in the last 2 weeks, right? Now, among the men in the Jenin area killed over the past 24 hours was the brother of Ayman Kamemji. Again, I talked about him because you remember there are 6 Palestinians who escaped from this high-security Israeli prison. It was basically prison break in real life. They tunneled out and they were on the run. And Ayman Kamemji was one of them. And they caught them and put them in solitary, and they killed his brother, right? And this is important to understand because Jenin has a refugee camp, which is very famous. And the Israelis went in there in 2002 and they committed, basically what's a massacre. And, in the Washington Post article, they say it's a hotbed of extremism. And what you expect when you're colonizing people and killing their families left and right? You kill their mother, you kill their sister, their brother. What do you expect, honestly? They act like it's just the extremist Palestinians that, they appeared out of thin air. And again, their idea of extremist is anyone who resists colonialism. That's basically, what's extremist for them. 4 other Palestinians were killed during operations Wednesday night near the West Bank cities of Ramallah, Nablus, and Beit Laham, according to the Palestinian Health Ministry. So Ra'ad Hazem, again, he's the guy who was in Tel Aviv, and they talk about his family leaving because they tried to go and arrest him. Honestly, it's too much. I literally cannot keep up with the number of deaths, the people wounded. If you look at today, this morning at the Al-Aqsa Mosque, just going back to the Reuters article, 152 people were injured, and I think this is a conservative figure because it's from a few hours ago. It's probably much higher now. You know, I mean, it's just disgusting, right? Look how they just go into people's homes in these raids in Jenin. So this is the camp I was telling you about. Colonizers, you know, these are colonizers. They're occupiers. You know, they fire journalists. They go and beat women for no reason. This is oppression. And do you think the media is going to care? Do you think they're gonna care about the Palestinians and their plight? They don't even talk about this except to say, oh, it's clashes, it's complicated. It's not complicated. You got a colonizer and you got the colonized. It's literally that simple. This is not a clash. These are war crimes when you attack a holy site, killing, you know, teenagers, a lawyer. What is that? What have these people got to do with terrorism? Your supposed counterterrorism? Literally nothing. Absolutely nothing. And look at the difference in rhetoric, right? So when they were talking about Ukrainians, they would say, oh, only the brave, how Ukrainians can take on Russian tanks with Molotov cocktails. So that's from Forbes. And you had, of course, Jeremy Bowen, who's a veteran war correspondent from the BBC. I'm sure you know his face. He was posting on Twitter a guide, you know, with drawings of how to best throw Molotov cocktails at Russian tanks, like, you know, where the intake is, which areas are more vulnerable. Do you think he'll ever do that for Palestinians? Right? Let's take a look at a CNN article, what they say about a Palestinian boy who threw a Molotov cocktail. Not a Ukrainian, a Palestinian boy, 14 years old, and he was shot dead by the Israelis just yesterday. Right? So they put a quote here from the Israelis saying IDF soldiers used live ammunition in order to stop the immediate threat. Right? So when Ukrainians throw Molotovs, they're brave, and when Palestinians do it, they are immediate threats. Very interesting. So do you see what we mean when we talk about double standards? This is of course what we're talking about. One of the examples. I told you there were raids in Nablus and Jenin in the last days. You take a look at these videos. That's an Israeli bulldozer. So you can see them going in column after column to raid people's houses, and the Palestinians have rocks. So you have people with machine guns, with tear gas, with stun grenades, with riot gear, with armored personnel carriers, with, you know, with jeeps, versus people with rocks, and they call that a clash. This is one of the Israeli jeeps ramming into a wall. Here's a video from inside Jenin camp, which I told you is this big refugee camp. You can see the Palestinian resistance fighters ready for the Israeli raids. So again, this is in response to Naftali Bennett, the Israeli prime minister, saying that, you know, he wants all the Israeli forces to go on the offensive. Honestly, this situation right now is very, very, very delicate. Last year, when the Israelis did this stuff, they went into Al-Aqsa Mosque and they were threatening to evict people, to kick Palestinians out of their homes in Jerusalem, in Sheikh Jarrah. That started a war. You remember there was a war with Gaza for 11 days because Hamas, in protest to the Israelis raiding Al-Aqsa Mosque and trying to kick Palestinians out of their homes, they started launching rockets, right? Because they said you're threatening the third holiest site in Islam, and that's what happened. And so even the mainstream media, it's not me saying this, but even the mainstream media are saying that this situation right now, it could very well turn into another war, because of what the Israelis are doing and the response from the Palestinians. And I want to say something very clearly, because you have some people in the media say that, it's because the religions are, the Christians have Easter and the Muslims have Ramadan and the Jews have Passover and all these religions are clashing. Please go away with this rubbish. Go away with this nonsense. In the Middle East, in Palestine, in Syria, we have Jews living with Christians, living with Muslims, because those religions come from that area. They come from the Middle East. That's where they started. So you've had Muslims and Jews and Christians living together for thousands of years, literally. So this idea that, Arabs and people in the Middle East, they're just a bunch of savages who are, so primitive, they fight over religion. This is a Western colonial talking point to justify dividing people based on sectarian lines and whitewashing, their role in this violence. Because Israel could never do this without the military and financial support of the US, mostly, and of course the UK, which, helped create Israel in the first place. So this idea that it's something to do with religion is rubbish. If that were true, then every single year for the last 2,000 years, you should have had clashes because once in a while Easter and Passover and Ramadan coincide. What nonsense! What absolute nonsense! This is so ridiculous. Absolutely nothing to do with religion. The only aspect that religion plays in this in what's happening is the fact that the Israelis are trying to block people from going into Al-Aqsa Mosque, and more importantly, raiding it, right, attacking it. That's the issue here. But it's not because like Judaism and Islam and Christianity are like fundamentally incompatible. That is such nonsense. That is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, these are the three monotheistic Abrahamic religions. They have, more in common with each other than anything, right? They have more in common with each other than not. So I'm not buying that, and maybe this rubbish works with other people that are not from the Middle East and don't know, but it doesn't work with me. I'm sorry. This is colonialism. You have a European colonial project that was created by the British, settlers that are coming in from who knows where, Eastern Europe, from Poland, from Ukraine, from even neighboring countries sometimes, from Egypt, from America. It makes no difference. That's the whole point of Israel. They grant citizenship to any Jew, and you can come and take a Palestinian's house, even though that Palestinians lived there for 20 generations. Doesn't matter that you're not from this place. They'll give you the citizenship, and they have the army, and they're in control, and that's it. It's about colonialism, settler colonialism. That's fundamentally what's going on. And to suggest otherwise, this is it's just dishonest. I think when you see the Palestinians throwing the rocks, this shows you, first of all, the imbalance. Israel literally has nuclear weapons. Palestinians don't even have an army. They don't even have a military budget. But do you see their resilience? They're not going to give up. This is not going to stop. You saw how those armored trucks are driving through this convoy of trucks going on a raid. They're going to throw rocks at them till the end of time. You cannot defeat the Palestinians. It's never going to happen. It's not happening. Even the British, they stayed in India for hundreds of years and they got kicked out in the end because it's not their land. They're colonizers. They're coming from Europe. They're coming from elsewhere. You cannot defeat you cannot win on someone's home turf, right? Whether it's the Americans in Vietnam or it's the British in India, you cannot win on someone's home turf. And this is the Palestinians' home turf. They will die for this land because they know what it means. They will die for it, literally. And many have been martyred. And that's literally why you see David versus Goliath, literally taking up the stone and fighting for national liberation. And so the media calling that terrorism or calling that clashes like it's some level playing field. This is disgusting. This is whitewashing colonialism, is what it is. And my fear is that this is gonna, it's gonna flare up and turn into a bigger war. And last year, when it happened in Gaza, you had 240 Palestinians killed, 65 of them were children, 2,000 Palestinians wounded. I mean, again, the Israelis have jets from the Americans, and they get billions of dollars every year in military equipment. Palestinians have rocks, and they will still win.